So good evening, everyone. Nice to see all of you. We are going to call to order the Redistricting Committee meeting for February 13th. We'll start by doing a roll call for attendance. So Joe, did you want to read the roll call?
Yeah, and just people can just put themselves on and just say you're here. Jake? Here. Amy Sareva?
Here.
Rob Cancelleri?
Here.
David Guglia? Katie Monahan?
Here.
Christine Feeney? I saw Chris earlier.
She was here. It looks like she
He
maybe
just jumped off.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome back. Ed Clark?
Here.
Dr. Quayle, Amy Quayle.
Here.
Thank you. Catherine Weiss.
Here.
Chris Shannon.
Here.
Dennis Rigo.
Here.
All right. Jennifer Hilton.
Here.
Thank you. Beth Catrabone. Keisha Jeffrey. Eleanor Rake. Charlotte Green.
She's logged on.
Okay. Amanda Souza. Let me see. Voting member, Jillian Savoy.
Here.
Thank you, Jillian. I don't know if Erin's here as well. She's the non-voting when there's two of you, but Erin, if you're here, yes, you are. Thanks for joining as well. Lynn's Hercule. Kate Pearl. Saw Kate. Elsa Montero. Megan Texera.
Here.
Thanks, Meg. And Masha Previati.
And Christine Feeney just joined us.
And Chris is on. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 present. You have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We have no one logged on for public comment, do we? All right, seeing and hearing none. We will move on to the next item, acceptance of minutes for January 9th. You received those alongside the agenda. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to review those. You could just take a second to glance over those and see if there's a movement. Ms. Weiss?
I had one small correction, and this is just because we've been not very clear about saying it, but instead of NASDAQ, it's NESDEC, NESDEC, for the enrollment protection.
Good catch.
Thank you. We will make that correction. Amy, that's on page 4, I believe. Any other comments? Okay. Is there a motion on the floor?
I'll do
I'll
it.
move
So
to approve
moved.
the minutes.
Oh. I'll
Jake
second.
first. Thank you, Jake. Thank you, Katie.
Listen, any further discussion?
Accept.
You gonna do a roll call again?
Yep, I'm the ex officio, so I'll do it because I don't have I'm not a voter on this committee. Jake Dorr?
Yep.
Amy Sareva?
Here.
Rob Cancelleri?
Here.
Katie Monahan?
Yes.
Christine Feeney?
Here.
Ed Clark?
Here.
Amy Sareva, Amy Quayle?
Yes.
Catherine Weiss, sorry, boss. Stephen
Yes.
Weiss. Chris Shannon,
Yes.
Dennis Rigo,
Yes.
Jennifer Hilton.
Yes.
Let me see. Is Keisha Jeffrey here from the Gibbons? I don't think
No.
so. That was an absence. Sorry. I'm trying to read my own writing. Jillian Savoy,
Yes.
Kate Pearl,
Yes.
Megan Texera.
Yes.
It's unanimous, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I also vote
No.
yes.
Sorry.
Thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda is a review of prior information. Dr. Baeta?
Yeah, so could you put up the information from tonight? Are you able to do that?
Yes, I will work on that.
I want to apologize to the working team for the lateness of all this information. I've worked out the details in my office to provide this like I do with the school committee the week before electronically, and then we can have hard copies at the office if people that are coming to meetings, if we do hybrid or whatever. So it's my fault. Nobody else to blame except for me on that one. So what I wanted to do tonight is I wanted to get, and I know you're bringing up the information. I wanted to go back to a couple of things that are of importance around the redistricting with attention to the heat map. So if you could go to that, that's the most important part of tonight's conversation. Because there's been a couple of things, and I presented it the other day. Ms. Weiss and Ms. Shannon, Chris Shannon, both know this at the school committee the other day. It's something that's very interesting on this heat map, and I don't know if you can pull that up a little bit.
Yep.
Julie.
Let's see if I can do this here.
Great, and just shift it up a little bit if you can.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, so that's perfect. So if you look at this, right, just follow along. I think you have your hard copies, or you have your copies. The squares represent our current schools, and just north of the South School is also the new elementary school. Okay, so when you're looking at redistricting, your new elementary school is physically still in South Stoughton. So that's just point number one to kind of keep as part of your information. However, I want you to go, we were having some, I believe, Chris Shannon at school committee Tuesday, we called it the South. we're going to go south, and we became the Deep South. If you look south of the South School, you have this significant red heat map. What that reflects is in that in 22-23, as you can see, within the outline of what is the South School, which is that broken up by that dark black line, most of the students in South Elementary School are coming from the deep southern part of Stoughton. Everybody with me so far? This is very intriguing to me for a couple of different reasons. Number one, you can conclude that the amount of redistricting and shifting students as for a new school will be less than if you're redistricting with modulars. Bear with me. Why? Because I want you to imagine that southern outlined South School area with that heat map in that far south area and no building in that area of town. No new school, no modulars. So this became an aha moment for me. And please disagree. But what happens is our potential shift of clockwise or counterclockwise of new school redistricting will be totally different from basically an angle, because you have to move everybody out of South School. That means more shifts at the Gibbons, the Hanson, and the Daw with modulars than if it's a new school. It's that simple. There'll be less students impacted with a new elementary school than with a modular project. Now, that's important for the redistricting committee for two reasons. Hopefully, we have a successful April date, and this is gone. We don't have to even worry about this. We're doing redistricting, and we can probably get heat maps and tentative information out within 6 to 9 months. Probably do it from the time of the project, and I'll give you a project update in 2 seconds. The project update in general that we heard at the building committee last night is that a new elementary school building would be open and moved in September of 28. So we would be opening in the fall of 28. Okay. If we don't have a new school, we could be moving into modular classrooms with no South School by September of 27. Okay. Now, the second part of this, okay, Katie, go ahead.
Sorry, I thought you were done. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I did
No,
have
go
a
ahead.
question. I definitely don't disagree with what you're saying at all, but if the new building gets passed, which I'm sincerely hopeful that it will, I mean, there are a significant amount of kiddos in the Wilkins district. I mean, that's where most of the population is, and they will all have to get shifted to somewhere. So I just was wondering what I'm not really being clear, but I mean, there are a tremendous amount of kids that will get shifted if there is a new building as well.
Yes. So
Okay.
I want you to look at the Hanson School heat map, which is on the top left side. And then I want you to look at the Gibbons heat map. And again, stay within the outlined black borders. And knowing that the Gibbons is at a little over 400 students, you're at about 340-ish or so, give or take. And the DAR is at, I believe the last count was 408. The shift on a new elementary school is going to be based on that center area. So the Gibbons, there is, if you look at it, the heat map at the DAW really comes from the middle as well. It's coming from looking at the Wilkins area and literally pushing more kids from the Wilkins area out into the DAR area. I would actually argue that there's a potential there. And again, we don't have this broken down by streets, and we will in the future, but the heat index on this, the way I see it anyways, and try to interpret it, is that the most of the population of our town is centrally, if you will, is centrally located. And then that bigger pocket, both at the Hanson, which would be on my side of town where I live, and then the deep south area, as I call it. I probably shouldn't call it deep south, but the most southern part of Stoughton on the eastern line, if you will. So you're absolutely right. If you look at the numbers, and I started to take a look at how many kids are actually living on this street, that whole central area, which is right now literally the Wilkins, the Gibbons, and some of the DAW without a South School, is going to have significant shifts because you're still no longer neighborhood schools. You've just moved an entire side of town. So the argument around, well, we have to be neighborhood schools. I only believe in neighborhood schools. You've already heard that argument, if I remember correctly, early on especially. There's no guarantee that for the Wilkins, that under a modular project or a new project, that there aren't a significant number of students that are going to be impacted. And again, we don't have those numbers yet. We'd have to try to create. My next goal, to be quite honest, is to internally look at where people are currently, like today. So I'm not even trying to project it out. So my numbers would be off. But what I want to do, and I've asked, is I want every single student that attends each school by street, and then put those on a map. And then at a meeting, share with you, well, take a look at this. You know, these would be the streets that would be potentially, could be impacted. And again, it's could, because the numbers aren't going to be real until we're actually doing it. And, 10 bodies could change anything. The other part that is important is that with the modulars, because of the shift of the 300 students and then impacting everybody redistricting, what that means is my comment earlier that your neighborhood schools are going to be gone across the board. There's just too many bodies to move within the modular system versus the new school. Yes, there's an impact, but that impact still allows for a lot of kids who are close by, if you will. It all going to depend on if this goes clockwise, counterclockwise, or if we end up with a more of an angle because we're closing a building. Does that make sense? I know it's very verbal and not visual, so it's hard maybe to make sense of it. So I just want to kind of bring that up to folks. And then if you could go to the regular map, Julie. All right, so this is our current legend for our schools. So, and if we blew this up further, let's just blow up. Can you blow this up and see if we can put the South School? Perfect. Thanks, Julie. All right, so here we are. We know that Atkinson down to Benson over to I can't read it, but whatever that is on the side there, that's that heat map right there. That heat map has no place to go under a modular project. I just want to say it that way. It has no place to go. There's nothing that's close to that. The closest would be the Gibbons School, which is at full capacity. So if 100 kids are going to whatever, let's just say the word it's 100. So the idea would be in a redistricting, we're building a school for up to 600 kids. The current South School runs between 300 and 308. So there's 300 shifts. There's more than that, by the way, statistically, but for the sake of argument. So the closest school to that heat map on the southern side is the Gibbons School. It's not the DAW. So you're having to cut the town on a left to right or right to left basis. That's what it comes down to. There will be no school in the southern part of Stoughton at all. If you scroll this down a little bit so you can just see the DAR and the Wilkins. Now, if you have where the new school is, just go up higher so you can still see the new school. Sorry, Julie. Right there, perfect. So the new school's right there, right? It's the added bullet. Take a look at left to right or straight up. Closest is still the Gibbons. Just looking at it, again, I don't have it by miles, but we all know that it is. Versus the DAW. So, and then if you look at the Hanson with the Wilkins, the DAW, the Gibbons with a new school, you can almost see the shift in how it's going to happen. It's practically a clockwise. But if you eliminate the South School with the most southern tip having a heat zone, you're now looking at a pattern that looks like a T almost, with having to move all the kids in South Stoughton into, well, the closest would be the Gibbons, which then would mean a ton of movement between all of the schools. I don't know if that makes sense. I'll take it.
It makes complete sense. This is Jennifer Hilton.
Hi, Jen.
Yeah, it makes complete sense.
Right. So the impact on us as a school district, and this is just kind of using the back of the napkin, huge impact on transportation costs coming out of the South. Potentially, in some cases, because of where the Hanson's heat map is, the Hanson kind of has to grab those kids that are far on that northern western side of town. Western side of town, I'll just use that. They don't have a choice except to you're not going to be sending those kids over to the Wilkins. It's too far. So the impact is going to be more kids on the Gibbons potentially going to the Hanson, and then so on and so on in a situation like this, because we're not gonna try to establish. Well, let me phrase that. We're going to attempt to try not to establish kids being on a bus longer because their part of town doesn't have a bus. doesn't have a school, excuse me. Now, certain populations of people really don't care about this. It's irrelevant to them. It is what it is. But to folks that are parents who are trying to decide, how do I feel about a new school versus modulars, you should be looking in the mirror because there's an impact here. And there's also the impact of having 3 or 4 buildings. By the way, I've said this to Katie already, Katie Monahan, our principal, our fantastic principal, they all are, by the way, they're really good, I can't say today that the Wilkins would not have modulars as well because of the numbers that you're seeing and how much of a shift has to take place. So right now, you're saying 300 kids are going to move. So you're looking at, I think we did 6, 6, and 4. So 16 classrooms plus offices and bathrooms, 4. If you want to scroll down real quickly, Julie, if you don't mind, to just, let's just go to the Hanson real quick for where the modulars would be. The modular classrooms at the Hanson have the least impact on outside space, except a lot of parking spots have to be now moved to what is their playground because parking over there is not very good to begin with.
Did you want to go to the heat map, Joe? I'm sorry.
No, I wanted to go back. I wanted to go to the modulars.
Oh.
Back up top. My bad. It should have been more detailed.
Oh, other way, I think.
Yes. All right, so this is the DAW. If you just leave it on that, scroll up a little bit. So this is a really simple thing. You're looking at the blacktop on your right, and that's how much of, at minimum, that's the amount. And the gap between the regular building and the new, quote, modulars has to be a certain extension because a fire truck has to be able to get in there. Right, that's part of the regulations. I just found that out when I did a trip to a colleague's modulars. And the connections that are here right now are canopies. So they're not fully secured. If you scroll down, sorry, my Catahoula must be hearing something. All right, so these are the modulars that's set up at the DAW. And again, this is a rendition. It's, typical classroom. In this case, we've put in a special education classroom. I'm not sure that would be true. One of the things that's really, really important is there's not going to be a fundraiser or a raffle for who gets to be in the modulars. I've been hearing a little bit of that, like, oh, well, my kids probably won't go to the modulars. If educationally we believe that 5th grade belongs in the modulars, that's where we're putting them. If it's kindergarten, that's where we're putting them. Probably wouldn't be kindergarten, by the way. But there's no such, it's not going to impact me. Within the next 2 fiscal years, it could. So just keep that in mind. And then, excuse me, if you go to the Gibbons Elementary School, you'll see that play area, that recess area is completely taken over. And the reason for that is the way that we're sitting on the canopies. And again, don't forget that the canopy areas are somewhat enclosed. They'll support with weather. I would have some safety concerns, but if we have to make that a full actual connection, then there's an impact on fire code and ADA. ADA will actually be not a major issue at 2 of the 3 schools, or actually 2 of the 4 if we had the Wilkins. It would be more of the fire stuff. Here's the thing that no one's talked about, and we don't need to go back, Julie, to the DAW. Has anybody been to the DAW school recently during arrival or dismissal? Now I want you to think about. Okay, I want you to think, Jen, about 100 more kids going there, and somewhere around 12 staff members, 9 staff members, somewhere around there, and more parking.
And probably an extra bus or so, I would think.
At least, and
right?
And the only place I can go at the dawn to do more parking is the remainder of the blacktop.
Mm-hmm.
Because the staff could drive in there and park in there.
Right. Yep.
So, yeah,
Mhm.
kind of doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And then the Hanson, which Julie, if you could help with that, sorry again. And this will be my second to last piece. The Hanson's impact actually doesn't impact their big playing area, except this area that you see in front of you here is the best place for us to put it. And those are currently four spaces. So there are 4 classrooms and offices, and they have the bathrooms connected and all of that. Now, what's not in any of this that really opens up, Meg, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think the other thing that I've come to understand in all the work that we've been doing is these are not the modulars that are at the middle school. I think people assume it will look and feel and operate the way the modulars do at the middle school. And my understanding is it will not, because those are built in and had additional work done, and these would not be and delivered in the same way.
Yeah, so it's a good point. So these are what are called temporary modulars. They're not permanent modulars. Those are 2 different things. Now, I have to say, Meg, the original ones at the middle school were put in as temporary. What happened is the project came in under cost. And so what they did is they decided to add the bricking of the building themselves. Now, since then, technology's gotten better, and what they use for a product, so on and so forth. But one of the reasons why you don't see tens of thousands of these in Massachusetts is because we live in a 4-season area. You go out to Florida, for example, it's not unusual to see campuses that are actually permanent, what they call permanent modulars. The second part that's important that goes with that is the dynamics of the traffic flow, even in this building, because you're coming off of a major road, Central, is a little bit concerning. This would have potentially less students, but still the impact would be that the physical spaces, and this is the part I wanted to reference, the physical actual spaces, when it comes to the kitchens for making food, when it comes to the cafeteria to have kids eat, gymnasiums, they're not made for 100 more kids to be in the building, and plus staff. The timeline, when we look at this, that makes this project financially still unknown are things like, and I won't read it all, but I'm happy to share it with you. Where's the water, sewer, and current utilities at each building? And how does that drive up the cost? Remember that the situation at OMS was such that we decided to just septic the system. So it's a septic system. It's not connected to sewer. So the access to the location, Hanson, we're in decent shape. Gibbons, good shape. Dar, a lot of question marks because of what it takes up. Crane usage, I can see, and I only say that because cranes, when they come in to be used, if it was at the Wilkins, cranes are going to be a concern. Surveillance and alarms, sprinkler systems, site soil compaction, and testing, to be quite honest. The big one is going to be stormwater management. That's required by regulation. And so the flow of the water, if you will, from rain and all that, and where does it go? And how much more space does that eat up? Because they may have to create systems, traffic plan, and then, of course, the outside resource and outdoor and educational spaces are all of what I mentioned the other day as well. So that's an update of just trying to look at this a little bit more in a little bit more detail. The only other thing that I wanted to add is after the April 8th positive vote, we should all celebrate that we don't have to talk about modulars, and I won't spend another minute of my life on it. Except for, to be quite honest, the discussion that the school committee and I have had publicly, which is the idea that we may need temporary modulars if we continue to grow at the rate that we're growing, because we're already shutting down libraries all over the place. We already have kids in hallways for lessons. And that continues to be a big concern. And then the Jones School has a waiting list of 90 students. And for those of us that have been in Stoughton for a long time, either as employees or live here, 90 is not a number that we're used to seeing. You know, we've never had a waiting list of 90 kids for a preschool. So there's definitely a need, a want. So potentially modulars at the Jones, because if the new school doesn't go through, the Jones doesn't close. The Jones remains open as a preschool because the Wilkins would just be an elementary school. It would not be changed over. I'll take any other questions that folks have. If you decide to share the heat maps with folks, please do. Be mindful that it's from 22-23. You know, they're starting to get older because of the changes that we're seeing. So just know that there's some fluctuations that are happening in these heat zones, but this is all public information for you to have. Jake?
So I think it's actually about the heat maps. What would the timeline look like for us to do some of that work around having a company do newer heat maps for us? So based off this post April 8th, are we looking at the summer? Are we looking at the fall? What would that look like?
So depending on what project we go with, the heat map will absolutely be done as part of the new school redistricting plan. So we, as you may recall, we have an up to $90,000 expenditure at town meeting for under capital to hire a firm. We could probably slow that firm down because we're not opening until 28. So you'd want that firm probably not having to do anything until at the earliest 26. If we're looking at it from a modular perspective, then a couple of things have to happen. The first one is we need to hire a design and engineering firm to actually look at what this project would look like. So we'd have to go to the fall town meeting and ask for money. So the $1 million we just spent on design, architect, schematic design, and everything else for the new school is just lost money. We did get reimbursed on part of that, by the way, from MSBA. So we'd have to ask for new money. Then that firm, you have to bid it and all that stuff. Then that firm would probably be hired. Let's say we had a November town meeting. You're looking at probably not hiring somebody until February, March. They're pretty quick at turning around a cost plan and what this would look like and all of that. And then they would be bringing in as part of theirs yet the next heat map. But your final heat map wouldn't be available to us until probably a good 9 months before the opening of the modulars, maybe a year for schools. Modulars are they're quicker to get up. It's about 8 to 20 weeks from the time of the arrival of the materials. So it's not as long of a project, but you still have to do permitting and approvals and all of that, testing. And what people continue to forget about this is we're not just building 6 modulars at one school. We have at least 3 sites, potentially a 4th. So that's going to have some cost as well. Jake?
I don't want to get too in the weeds, but just as a follow-up to that, what would I would assume that would mean, and hopefully we don't have to go down this route, but I guess I've heard this question from my school council from other places before, so I'll ask on behalf of others. We would think those sites would probably would that be simultaneous? Would those have one after another? How would we try to do that?
It's a really good question when it comes in that's around specifically the modulars, right? So there's no real way for us to just say, okay, well now all these kids move and impact, certain populations of kids because where they live that they're now moving, and this would have to be all at the same time. It's almost not feasible the other way without having serious academic impacts on kids. And to be quite honest, although I think young kids are in general, pretty flexible. We do have students that's an area of struggle. All of a sudden, in the middle of the year, having to go, you get to leave, and then the next group, and then the next. That's not educationally advantageous to any kid, I don't think. Hi, Amanda.
Hi, I'm just speaking on behalf of the Jones too. There's a couple issues too with modulars that I think we'll have to look at. One of them being is those are, our little people in town, and it's very, very hard. Sorry, excuse said little person. That very, very difficult to disrupt that school year. And also, sorry, everybody. The Jones School has their pickup drop-off situation per the fire department. So I'm not sure where we would put a modular classroom on that property, because per fire and police, that whole pickup drop-off that goes around the school and whatnot is set in stone kind of thing. So that would be a huge one at the Jones.
Yeah, the only place at the Jones for modulars would literally be between the building and my building, where we have the playground. And it would take up all that space. It wouldn't take up the playground necessarily, but it would take up that blacktop area.
Got it. Okay. Just throwing it out there for discussion.
No, you're right. Anyone else? Hi, Catherine.
I also have little people running in the background, so I apologize for the screaming like the banshees in the background. I want to bring up a point that we discussed at the school committee meeting that actually followed on something that Ms. Miller presented about the high school discipline with a change in schedule and the noticeable significant drop in disciplinary actions that needed to be taken with a decrease in transitions, and thinking about how these modulars are going to have and not only extra bodies, but potentially extra transitions between spaces, additional kids in the hallways, and the need for additional staff, I think needs to be also figured into the cost, not only additional transportation, but just additional staff to monitor having extra kids walk by and the distractions that of having additional classrooms walk by certain areas to get to specials areas or to get to the gym, get to the cafeteria. And so I think that's also an important consideration, that this isn't just leaving kids and a couple teachers. There potentially needs to be extra hires, like extra administrators, and extra thought to coordinating recess and all of this. It's going to be a really complicated process.
You are 100% correct. I think somebody else had their hand. I just can't see them, but
Megan.
all right, Meg.
Hi. We talked about this a little bit the last time, but I was still getting a lot of questions about it. If disaster strikes at the South, we would be looking at, I think we talked a little bit about the schedule that we'd have to do split school day maybe for a while. Is that?
Yeah, so there's a different number of different ways to respond to a major significant physical plant issue in a building, either the whole building, partial building, all of that. So we still have to go through a procurement process. So until that process is completed, unless the IG stepped in, the Attorney General's office stepped in and said, we're going to waive that, which they never have, or they don't, we would be looking at a staggered school day for the South. So what does that look like? So there would have to be some type of an impact on at least one elementary school where the students at the South would go from, let's say, the students at I'm just using this as totally hypothetical. The students at the Gibbons are going to a half-day schedule, they leave, and the students at the South all go to a half-day at the Gibbons. Family impact on that, economic impact on that, structure impact on that is pretty significant. Districts have done it. If you take a look at any of the major catastrophes that have happened with tornadoes and all of that, that's what those communities have done, is they've gone to some type of staggered education schedule with whatever buildings have been left. including elementary kids being in a high school and all of that stuff. I've actually seen that. I've only experienced one situation, and it was a high school, and it's just so different with high school students than it is with young children in K to 5. And some people would say, well, why wouldn't we do something with preschool and move there? Well, the fact of the matter is that those classroom spaces are not regular classroom spaces. They are mostly classrooms that have been cut by 3/4 or a half, and were originally, as you know, Meg and others, were original regular sized classrooms, but most of them have been cut to make it into smaller classrooms to run more specialized classrooms. So we couldn't just do that. So it would be a lot of people sitting in a room trying to figure out how we're going to do this best. You could also keep your schedules the same, run buses to multiple schools, and increase class sizes. So you take your 55 kids in grade 3 at the South and you send them to the other elementary schools and split them with those classrooms, and they just become students there while you're trying to figure out what happens with the other school. That would probably be, out of all the options, option A.
Sure. Yes, quickest.
It has the quote, and just take this as a grain of salt, the least impact on creating enough days. And then it would be just more transportation, more moving the material, supplies, or getting more, or whatever the case may be.
Follow up to that comment on with the mods, if we go mods, if we have to failed vote and we go mods, what would be the average elementary school class size?
Well, that's going to depend on a couple of things. What I've tried to do is, using the numbers right now, I've tried to keep those numbers at 18 to 22, 21 in some cases, because there's a couple here or there, but we would try to go after those types of numbers. But you're right. If all of a sudden, as part of this plan, and I'll give you an example, I've actually used the South and the Hanson. They no longer have libraries. So the Hanson might have to get a 5th and a 6th modular, or just because we want to bring back our libraries. They're part of a well-rounded education. Or we might just say, well, no, we're only going to go with the 4, and the library is going to, so on and so forth. So those are the difficult questions that we would have to answer. But class size goals would be, we have class sizes now that are pushing 22 already. So, we know that there's issues with that because we like to have class. I was just in the kindergarten classroom at the Wilkins this week playing teaching assistant, paraprofessional, or as I said it, master of nothing, where the kids were great, but there were 16 students and they were lovely. And the teacher was awesome and her assistants were awesome, but it was a lot. Which makes me reflect on a lot of things about needs. So reasonable number, but yet, or actually would say very good number, but still a lot. I'll leave it at that. Now, one of the things we haven't spoken about, and since Ed's on my screen on the left side and Amy's right in front of me here, Amy Sareva is, and I could also say Amy Quayle, is the issue of specialized populations and the impact on a new school versus the impact of modulars. A new school has been well thought out, clearly articulating the support of a 21st century school, which includes the appropriate professional spaces from day one for delivery of services for students who are in a, if you will, smaller classroom or in office spaces or whatever the case may be for their service delivery, versus modulars where, yeah, we're going to get some of that, but then we also have to worry about some of the other issues, most of them around, are they connected to the building or not, safety and all of that. Those are discussions that would also have to take place.
I just want to make note that during your presentation, Dr. Baida, we had 3 more members enter. So Anne Marie Gilbert, Dave Gulia, and Masha Previati are now on the call as well. Just wanted to make note of that.
Yeah, Dave, I got Dave. Who was the other one?
Anne Marie Gilbert
Okay.
and Marcia.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts? I appreciate the information, Dr. Biter, and I think the heat maps and the actual diagrams are really helpful in understanding, where this is leading.
Well, thank you. It's always nice to, I really wish that what I'm really wanting to do for the committee, but to be quite honest, I really don't. I'm trying to work out how for the March meeting, we could try to give you some better drawn out situations of what this looks like for both a new school and modulars. It's just, we don't really have the statistical or the software that can help us with that. Except for maybe our bus route software. And I just need to look at that, but you might see something that has a lot of like writings on it from me that is more of a paper pencil thing. So it's not going to look very good, but that's my goal, is to try to get you some better data on both of these situations, recognizing that it's just very 10,000 feet information.
Okay. I think we're on to other matters. Any other matters?
Just wanted to inform the committee that all 8 buildings coming out of vacation, probably that week, we are going to be receiving brand new maps of the new school, the whatever we call them. We're also doing the same thing for the modulars. So every building will have information available visually there for people to look at it when they're walking into the building during any meetings or anything. And it's just informational, and I'm doing both because, to be quite honest, I think it's my job to provide the public as much information as possible. I'm not telling you how to vote. I'm just saying, here are the facts.
Excellent. Good, Katie.
Dr. Baida, do you know when you might know if there might be modulars at the Wilkins? Only because I think that would be really important in terms of our community to kind of see that and the impact. I know that, it's a challenging community in terms of how they might vote, just based on the implications of the Wilkins potentially closing. But I think that if they were able to see that there could be impacts regardless, that might be really beneficial.
Yeah, so I've already requested that information, Kate. Thanks for reminding me, though. We've requested that information as part of taking a look at how do we make sure our libraries are opened up, because this would be temporary, but it would be at least a decade. A decade without libraries is not a good educational decision, in my opinion. So that's one of the reasons why we would be shifting more and utilizing the Wilkins as well. There's only one real option in your building for location, and it's a tough one, and that's the front of the building. It's kind of that top of that hill area, if you will, causing significant work to be done to the landscaping of it, if you will, to set it. Side of the building, back of the building are problematic because of the amount of space that you need to be able to have something like a fire engine and fire apparatus and all that stuff. So that could cause all kinds of other issues, i.e. Where the current playground is and all of that stuff. And we're not there yet. But thank you, yes.
Go ahead, Jake.
I know it was, I thought very impactful, Dr. Baeta, when your communication went out regarding the different plans. And a lot of what I heard for a couple of days was like, oh, did you see the drawings of what the DAW would look like? Did you see the drawings of the Hanson? Did you see? So I know that went out already, but I feel like it might be worthwhile, just in my opinion, maybe for Mr. Pickett to put some things out on, even on our social media, to be able to scroll through those things on, some of the platforms, and just to have that out there again, just as information. Because I do think when people do see it, it's like a real thing. I mean, like if I went to the DAW school and I knew I wasn't going to have a blacktop for a while, like that's pretty impactful to a lot of their community events, stuff like that. So.
Yeah, we're doing a Jeff and I are doing a show tomorrow. We're taping a show tomorrow on the modulars. Literally, I'm going through them. I did a little bit of it the other day at the school committee. Gotten some positive feedback about, wow, I really didn't know some of that. So now we're just going to do our own taping and then share it with families. I'm probably going to share it with families when we come back. And I don't think I'm going to do it tomorrow, because I think tomorrow people are like, it's Valentine's Day. It's getting on a plane and going somewhere, or it's just thinking about I'm off for next week. So I think we'll do a general letter tomorrow and then put the show on when we come back. We're also reaching out, so that the building committee is reaching out to PTOs to come and present at all of the meetings in March. And I think we start our first one with Amanda at the Jones with TJ and I.
Yes. So if like principals or whoever have parents that have questions or want to talk to Dr. Baeta and like see these draw ups and this information, the Jones PTO is hosting a meeting Tuesday, the 25th, coming back from vacation with childcare offered to hopefully help answer some of these questions and put these presentations out to parents. I've shared the event on Facebook and sent some flyers home in the Jones students folders from the PTO. If any principals are interested in getting a hold of that flyer, I can forward it to you. We have plenty of room, and Dr. Baeta and TJ will both be there to kind of present and answer questions.
Yeah, it'll be, I think Jeff came on earlier. I'll make sure that it's a focus of my message tomorrow as well. And then it'll be on that week event information that goes out on Mondays. Right, Jeff?
So just to confirm, we're okay sharing the Jones PTO event as like almost like a district-wide sort of event, like anybody could come to it?
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure. We have plenty of room. The Jones kind of community is a little bit similar in the sense that we haven't had like a ton of feedback from our school. So more than happy to open it up district-wide, and hopefully we can, get as many questions answered and as much information out there as possible.
Great. We'll put it in the newsletter tomorrow for sure.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great.
Good. Ms. Shannon?
Thank you. Apologies if I missed this detail. I had to eat lunch while I was off camera. Have we talked about the ancillary costs associated with modulars, and is there any way to estimate that and publicize that information as well, such as hooking it up to water, septic, electrical, heating, and the separate systems required? So it's not just the physical structure that's going to cost. And I also want to be careful of the messaging, because there's a really good chance, regardless of what happens, as we've been talking about with the new elementary school building, there will still probably be modulars required. So differentiating between the cost for modulars if there is a new elementary school building versus the costs if there is not a new elementary school building, I think will be very important for the public.
Yeah, we are working on much of that, if you will, other costs associated that are contingency costs in modular classrooms are a major headache. It's not unusual for us as you see the new project for us to be in that 7 to 10% number for contingency costs within a new building. Both soft cost, usually soft costs at 5 and construction at 10% of the total. Modulars are a huge headache. It's one of the biggest headaches to try to figure out because it all depends on where you're putting them. So in a perfect example might be, oh, blacktop, easy. Well, you're still going to have to drill that blacktop to figure out how solid that is underneath there, right? You just don't put a bunch of modulars on there. So that's going to have some costs associated with that, if you will. I have not, to be quite honest, I just haven't had the time to say, okay, where is the septic system at the door? What does this mean? Is if you're looking at the building, if it's on the left side and the modulars are going on the right side, you either just increased your costs or you're going with a septic system. Okay, where's that go? Right. So there's a lot more. It's easier to build, quicker to build. There's no doubt about that. It's typically costs less, but the idea of all of those other costs is very problematic.
All right. Anything else for this evening? Okay. Mindful of our time, it's just a minute before 7. I have a lot to think about, a lot to share. I'll be sure to add some stuff to my newsletter this week as well regarding the Jones parent PTO presentation and anything else before we motion to adjourn.
Julie, just one thing. I know that that's a dog drinking out of the bowl, but it sounds like the Clydesdales.
Sorry, didn't know you could hear her. She's like right next to me.
It's a lot better than my child following me up the squeaky stairs. Mommy, 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 mommy.
And just a reminder that our next meeting is scheduled for March 13th. Apparently she's very thirsty. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion.
All right. And a second.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Have a wonderful evening. Thank you for your time tonight. We'll see you again soon.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good night.